Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are talking about how Nintendo is very clearly saving Metroid Prime 4 Beyond for the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. I think this game is so obviously going to be a cross-generation game. Yes, it's still coming to Switch 1, but there will also be some kind of Switch 2 version. I think there's actually a decent amount of evidence to support this theory, different things we've discussed at different times, and now today, with there having been no announcement of any kind of direct for the month of February, I think it's more clear than ever before of what's going on, and that's what I want to get into today. And before going forward, let me take this moment to point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. So what I would like to address first here is that my belief in Prime 4 being a cross-generation title has really nothing to do with the rumors. Yes, there are rumors that Prime 4 will be a cross-generation title. There's even a rumor that Prime 4 could be a launch title for Switch 2, although that seems unlikely at this point. A lot of these rumors have come from Samus Hunter, who now many people think is not so credible. Yes, in 2024, they had a really good run of things. They said there would be a new 2D Zelda adventure. They were correct. They said that the MEO teaser had to do with a new Famicom Detective Club game with a purple motif. They were correct. They teased the announcement of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition right before it happened when no one else had. They were correct. And they even teased, a couple days before it happened, the Donkey Kong Super Nintendo World Direct. They were correct. But since then, there have been a variety of things that they have also said that we have been waiting to see if would be coming to fruition, and so far, not so much. They said Prime 4 would be a launch title for Switch 2, and while that is still a possibility, Nintendo has not told us what the launch title will be. They did show Mario Kart in the reveal trailer for Switch 2, which seems to imply that Mario Kart would be the launch title. And maybe somehow it's both, or maybe somehow Mario Kart isn't the launch title, but it just doesn't seem likely at this point that Prime 4 is. And then of course Samus Hunter's also talked about there being a Prime 2 remaster announcement in this month of February, and that hasn't happened either. Now there's still a couple days left in the month, maybe by some miracle it does happen, but I'm simply pointing out that while Samus Hunter said some different things on Metroid, and they do have some recent track history that suggests some level of credibility, as of late, I'm very skeptical, so that's not even part of the equation. And then there's this other leaker in Nashville who's talked about Metroid Prime 5 already being in development. That might be the case, that might not be the case, but it's not really relevant to what's going on with Metroid Prime 4 necessarily. I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be a cross-generation title for a variety of other reasons that have nothing to do with the rumors. And one of those reasons is what compelled me to make this particular video today. Because at this point, it seems very obvious that there's not going to be a big Switch 1 Direct. I've been theorizing that maybe we would get like a partner showcase in this month of February, maybe a mini if we're lucky, and up to this point, doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Maybe it'll be in March, but the closer we get to the big Nintendo Switch 2 Direct on April 2nd, the less and less reason I think there is to believe a possibility of there being a bigger Direct that might have something like Metroid Prime 4. You see, a Nintendo Direct Mini or a partner showcase isn't going to have Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 is a big first-party game from Nintendo, and it's not just a remaster, it's not a third-party collaboration. Retro Studios is a wholly owned 100% Nintendo studio. This is a Nintendo project through and through, and it's something Nintendo's been working on throughout the entire Switch generation. Looking at the game, it's very clear it's one of the most technologically impressive Nintendo games ever made. It's arguably the best looking Switch game we've ever seen. And so the point I'm making here is that this is an ambitious game. They use it as the closer for the last big General Nintendo Direct this past June of 2024. And so with it seeming pretty likely that there's not going to be another big Direct of any kind that would have something like Prime 4, the next presentation is April 2nd, which is about Switch 2. I think there's a heavy implication there that they are saving Metroid Prime 4 for that presentation. And many people are upset that we've had to wait this long for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. But I kind of think that one of the reasons we've had to wait so long is because Nintendo has intentionally been saving this game for the Switch 2 generation. Back in early 2023, we had heard that there was already some playtesting going on for Metroid Prime 4, and later we found proof that that was indeed the case. And so if they're already doing playtests on this game in early 2023, and here we are in early 2025, and we've only gotten one trailer on the game, I think that suggests that the game has probably been far along for some time, and maybe they've just been struggling to get it totally completed and ready this late into the game. But I think what makes more sense is that they have intentionally saved this massive project for Nintendo Switch 2. Just looking at the games that came out in the year of 2024, there were no big ambitious efforts from Nintendo. There were some decent efforts, but there was nothing that was of the caliber of a Pikmin 4, a Mario Wonder, a Tears of the Kingdom, which were 2023 games. And Prime 4 certainly is in that tier of quality from Nintendo. And so to me at this point, what just seems more realistic is that they could have had this game ready for the year of 2024, but no, they're saving it specifically for Nintendo Switch 2. But I think Metroid Prime 4 is cross-generation for more than just those reasons. Yes, like many others, I've made the connection that Metroid Prime 4 has been this title that's been in development throughout the entire Switch era, and now where we're at right now, its release year is coinciding with the release year of Switch 2, coincidentally, I say that with air quotes. Similar to how it happened for both The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild, which were also prior cross-gen titles from Nintendo. I think, yeah, you can make some level of a connection there, although I'm personally not thinking that Prime 4 will be a launch title at this point. I've certainly considered it in the past. But another big reason why I think Prime 4 is probably cross-generation is because we have seen, as we can see here from this chart made by PR485 putting together sales numbers from Nintendo, that software sales have been trending down year by year by year. And so as you see, in 2021, they were at their highest of copies shipped, and then in 2022, it started to dip. In 2023, it dipped even more so. And then in 2024, it dipped by an even more significant margin, suggesting that if this pattern continues, as it tends to for every single generation in video game history, 2025 is going to drop by an even more significant margin in terms of software sales. And so I bring this chart up because I want to highlight how Nintendo must see this situation. Why would they want to put out a game that they've clearly been investing much resources in since 2017? They had to restart development with an entirely new team. They've been hiring tons of AAA Western talent over the years. Just looking at the game, it's evident that this game is one of the most technically impressive Switch games there is. And when you also factor in the history of Metroid sales not really being as high as one might think they should deserve considering its critical acclaim, would Nintendo really want to put Prime 4 in 2025 as just a Switch 1 title where its sales potential would be most diminished? I know people like to point out that there are more Switch users now than ever before, but intrigue in the system is dying down. The amount of people buying games for Switch now is less than before. So while yes, technically there are a lot of potential users out there who could buy Prime 4 who already have a Switch, they're probably not going to because they're already done with their Nintendo Switches, or at least they're already done with buying new games for their Nintendo Switches. Because I know some people might counter and say that the Nintendo Switch still has a very active user base. They do, but as I'm showing with this chart right here, this user base is buying less and less games year by year as the console ages. In other words, from a business perspective, I just don't think it is a smart move to put Metroid Prime 4 out in the year of 2025 for only Switch 1. And I think Nintendo is highly aware of these trends and likely made the decision long ago that Prime 4 should be a cross-generation title. Here's another interesting point that's come out over the last few weeks. Many of you may have heard that Nintendo is discontinuing their Nintendo Gold Point program. But I want to clear something up here. Here they say that as of March 24, 2025, it will no longer be possible to earn Nintendo Gold Points by purchasing digital content. you can still get gold points if you pre-order a game before March 24th digitally. But here's the thing. If there is no Nintendo Direct showcasing Prime 4, the odds of that game going up for pre-order before March 24th seem really unlikely. So people will not be able to take advantage of the gold points program for this Switch 1 game Metroid Prime 4 digitally, and also not physically either. Here they say, physical versions of games released after March 24, 2025 will not qualify for gold points. In other words, any sort of significant Switch 1 game coming out after March 24th, 2025 will not be eligible for the gold points program that so many Switch games have been eligible for throughout pretty much the entire generation. Now, this does not confirm that games coming out afterwards are going to be cross-generation titles for Switch 2, but I do think it's an interesting hint, because I think it sort of goes to show that Nintendo is no longer focusing on trying to compel people to buy more things on Switch, even though software sales are trending downwards. It looks like they are accepting the fate of the Nintendo Switch, which at this point is fine. We're approaching the 8-year anniversary, and they are getting everything geared and ready for the Nintendo Switch 2, which might also be why Nintendo hasn't really bothered to tell us that much about Switch 1 so far this late into the year. The last time we had a Nintendo Direct was a partner showcase in August. Typically we have them in September, and here we are at the end of February and still nothing. This is a very long gap of time without Nintendo giving us some kind of Direct to update us on different games coming to Nintendo Switch 1. I think it's now more clear than ever before that Nintendo is not caring as much about Switch 1 compared to prior years, which is just more reason to think that they would not put something like Prime 4 or even also Pokemon Legends ZA to not see as much success as possible on the console. And on the note of Pokemon Legends ZA, this is another game that seems to be in a similar boat to Metroid Prime 4, because we don't know when it's coming out in this year of 2025, but we assume, given that we haven't gotten a release date yet, it's probably coming out after March 24th of 2025, so will also not be eligible for this gold points program, and likely also is going to coincide with the Switch 2 window. Now, there is a history of Game Freak not supporting next generation consoles in that first year, but what's interesting about Pokemon Legends ZA is that we have heard from the Terra Leaker that there is a Switch 2 version of some kind of Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, does that mean it will come to market? We do not know that, but according to the Terra Leaker, someone who is leaking real things from Game Freak, this does strongly suggest that they are also planning some type of Switch 2 version for Legends ZA, which is more so a piece of evidence to suggest that Legends ZA will be a cross-generation title. But I think what it highlights is that Nintendo may have several cross-generation titles in mind this time around. Not just the one like it was for prior Nintendo generations with Twilight Princess back on the Wii and Breath of the Wild for the Switch. Because of all Nintendo franchises to get a cross-generation version, Pokemon would be the least likely, given Game Freak's history. So to see that there's even some plans for Pokemon to have a cross-generation version, I think that bodes really well for something like Metroid Prime 4, which many people, when they finally saw footage for, thought it might be already a Switch 2 version they had in the Direct. It wasn't, but that just goes to show how impressive looking Prime 4 already is. Which actually brings me to another point. We have already seen evidence that Retro Studios has been hiring for lighting artists that have experience with ray tracing, as you can see with this experience of these different renderers here. Why would they be hiring talent for ray tracing? Now, maybe it's for a game coming out after Metroid Prime 4. Totally possible. At this point, we would assume that they'd be focusing on Switch 2 with their next project. But consider this. We saw this listing about half a year ago. If you want to assume that Nintendo hasn't been saving Metroid Prime 4 for the year of 2025, then they would still be deep into development and maybe would still be needing to hire talent like this, and likely aren't hiring as much for a future project, which would then suggest that this hiring post is more likely for Metroid Prime 4 specifically. But then if you want to assume that this hiring post is for a future project, then that also comes with the implication that there's a higher chance that Metroid Prime 4 is very far along, and they don't need to hire that much for that game anymore, meaning the game is basically done or close to done, which also calls into question why Nintendo would be holding back on releasing the game this long, unless it is indeed to release for Switch 2. So from either perspective, it does seem like Prime 4 is going to have a Switch 2 version. And then to really bring it home here, the one unique, surprising feature that we have seen from Switch 2 so far is this mouse controller feature. And we essentially have confirmation this is exactly how it works. You can flip the Joy-Con to the side, use it like a mouse, because we now have patents from it that came out after the reveal trailer, that came out after leaks, suggesting it already had this functionality. So we have multiple layers of evidence that this is indeed the case, that there are going to be mouse controls, which then has you wondering what kind of games would take advantage of this feature. And one of the biggest criticisms with console gaming from the PC gaming side of things is just the massive benefits of first-person games on mouse and keyboard, because the mouse really allows for far more speedy and precise aiming. But thanks to the Switch 2 Joy-Cons having this mouse feature, this is now a capability for the Switch 2. And what is Metroid Prime 4? A first-person game. Unlike Mario Kart, unlike Pokemon Legends ZA, Metroid Prime 4 is the one game that we kind of have an idea is going to be a Nintendo game relating to Switch 2 that very clearly can take massive advantage of the one big new surprising feature we've learned about Switch 2. There are some little things, but this is the one that stands out the most. And so even if you don't want to believe that Metroid Prime 4 is going to have some visual enhancements on Switch 2, with this controller technology here, it would just seem like such a tremendous oversight to not at least take advantage of this controller functionality for this first-person game, a genre for Nintendo that's very rare. It's something that belongs to the Metroid Prime series when it comes to Nintendo games, essentially. And so if there is one hill to die on when it comes to theories regarding Nintendo Switch 2, I think it's this one. I think it's that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is indeed going to have some sort of Switch 2 version. Maybe it's not a separate physical release, maybe it's simply a patch of some kind or what have you. There are different ways this can be done. Yes, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with the Switch 1, but when I talk about a cross-generation version, I'm talking about differences here, not just being able to play the game on the console. And so I expect that Metroid Prime 4 will have some visual improvements and controller improvements, and I'm hoping there will be more than just some visual improvements, but significant ones, which I know some people are going to debate, because the game's been in development for Switch 1 all these years. Has it really been time to make an adequately improved Switch 2 version? That, we don't know. But personally, given how long Prime 4 has been in development, given how clear the Switch 1 trajectory has been in terms of trending down software sales, I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo and Retro Studios have had a Switch 2 version in mind for a decent amount of time already, and might have been able to gear up a pretty decent, exciting version for the next generation console. Perhaps that is why Nintendo waited so long to show it off for the very first time. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.